Hey guys, how you doing? Long time no see. Hope y'all are doing well. So, Cameron and I just finished up our last practice before the Texas State Arm Wrestling Championships, and I gotta say, we're both feeling really good, in tip-top shape. I will not be pulling on my left arm for this competition, unfortunately. While it's doing really well and it's getting a lot better, I just feel like throwing it into a competition of this caliber so soon is only going to serve to re-inflame things. So, while it's gotten almost 100% better, I just want to give it a little more time to really solidify that. So, with that out of the way, I wanted to get into tonight's unhinged rant of the week. This is what I envision as the perfect practice, the perfect table time. So, if we think about our training, we generally divide this into table time and time in the gym. And I see this as a specific versus a broad development. Now, the gym is typically seen as a type of broad development. It will broadly make us better at the things that we seek to then apply in the specific ways that a table practice will demand of us. So if I were to go into the gym and do a bunch of bicep curls, this will broadly make aspects of my arm wrestling better. So back pressure, my lock in like a bicep hook type activity or something like that. But it would not be a specific type of training. Even specific lifts themselves are not the most accurate thing. As Todd Hutchings would say, they approximate arm wrestling, but they are not arm wrestling. The only way to get the most specific training is to get it at the table. And I know all of you are probably hearing me say that and thinking, yeah, well, duh, Zach, we kind of know that already. And I'm I'm saying this to reinforce the fact that because arm wrestling during our table practice is our most specific and accurate form of training, we must then approach it from the sense of preparing us in the best way possible for competition. So, this means that we can't be just fooling around willy nilly on the table. And this will get into some of my personal grievances with how some people approach table training, how I don't think it's the best approach necessarily. But one particular arm wrestling coach, Mark Perez of the West Texas Arm Sports, he put this really well to me and got me thinking in this direction. My gosh, must have been our first practice together, but he essentially said something to the effect of, how do basketball players get better at basketball? During their practice, uh, they may practice a layup or a free throw 100 times. They may have a few specific drills that they practice over and over and over and over again that will hone in on getting them better at refining a point where they are weak. And I think that we miss this a lot in our arm wrestling practices. We may go in with some general vague idea of what we want to do, some identity of like, well, I'm a top roller, so I'm going to practice mostly top rolling, but we don't have concrete ideas of fleshing out weak points, of doing drills, of focusing on places where we see we are lacking in competition. Oftentimes, I see arm wrestlers reserve this for strictly the gym. They treat getting better in this way of, well, I'll just strengthen my weak points. If you see like someone has lost hand control, then they may interpret that as, I go to the gym and I will work on my hand and get my hand better so that next time I will not lose my hand. And while I think that's incredibly important and essential to do, we shouldn't always chalk it up to just a strength issue. It is often a strength and a technique issue. Arm wrestling is an incredibly difficult to master sport. I'm of the opinion you can't really master it apart from your own individual style. So, in that vein of thinking, we can always seek to be better. And I think that starts first and foremost with having a deliberate table training routine or something similar to it. So, Cameron and I, we have been trial running some some drills essentially to help us get better. For the longest time, both him and I have only had access to, as you've probably seen if you've been on this channel for any amount of time, we've only really had access to like arm wrestling the public, the arm wrestle me to get candy type thing that I've been doing at my college for the past 3 years. And while that's good, and while plenty of strong people are here and offer good challenges for us, they're not arm wrestlers. They won't challenge us in the same way arm wrestlers do. And because of that, we have developed these weaknesses where we are often overly defensive, we're very slow, and we're not accustomed to ready goes or for kind of what a ref's grip that very fast sudden start would demand of us. So because of that, we've started uh, doing some ready go trainings, which I've shown in previous videos, and there's some footage of that in this one as well. But I think it's applicable across the board, so I wanted to talk about just three general things that I think everyone should try to include in their practices. So the first, we'll get it off rip, is the ready go trainings. I think if you have two people, it can work. If you look up a ready go audio on YouTube, like what me and Cameron do, if you have a third person, then that's great. You can cycle out one person refs, make sure you have legal grips, and then the other two just focus on hammering ready goes. This is meant to be high intensity, but as we know, that gets us really sore. So we do it only in short bursts. We have these ready goes, and you'll see me and Cameron, we reset every time there's either a pin or someone gets a stop. And we just return to center, rinse and repeat. We do this not a set number of times, but usually like anywhere from 10 to 20 times per arm. And ideally, I'd like to start doing this 2 times a practice, but we usually get it in at least 1 time. And I'd recommend doing this both in the strap and out, but out most especially. Especially if you're used to pulling tournaments, this is something that you've probably seen, is that most tournament matches do not end up in the straps. So it's important to know how to pull out of them. The second thing I think everyone should have in an arm wrestling practice, this is the one that most people kind of do in a practice, but they don't always do it with the same level of detail I would like to see, that I think is appropriate for the best development. So this would be kind of a middle of the road intensity where you have what I liken to kind of a flow pull. So this is where both arm wrestlers, they'll ease into their positions, uh, and they'll pull from there, trying to stay mostly center table. You can go for pins in this if you want. Cameron and I certainly do. Uh, and the whole point of this is to just understand the flow of a match, to fight for different positions, to fill gaps in your opponent's game, to go for counter moves, to know when to hold on, when to slip. All of the small minutiae that happen when a match stops. So the ready go is for what you would ideally want for pinning your opponent immediately. Then, in the bad case of a match stopping, or in the good case of you getting a stop, you would then have these middle of the road intensity pulls that just serve for you to understand the pressures. And the whole point is that you're thinking about, where do I go? What do I do? How do I advance my position, further what I have to get the technical advantage over my opponent, rather than just going for brute force. This way, when it comes down to a competition, you don't have to think about these things. It's just natural. I don't want to be thinking in the middle of, a state title match about, oh, do I think posting my elbow forward or dragging back would be the better option here. That's not something you want to be doing. You want to have your mind open and clear to be thinking about what your opponent is doing. Then the third thing here, which is the one I'm the most skeptical about, we're kind of trial running this here, is no load training. I think it has its place. Uh, I heard this as a concept originally from one of the lightweight IFA champions, but this is a method he says works very well. So the whole way it works is you have your two arm wrestlers. One will offer zero resistance, so he's just sitting there. The other person will, without loading any amount, execute their move to the utmost technical ability that they can, as cleanly as possible. That's first and foremost. If it's not clean, then it's not good. And the second is to do it as quickly as possible. This is another way of ingraining the movement pattern of whatever your go-to move is. That way, when ready go hits, not only have you practiced your timing for the ready goes and what it feels like to really hit super hard off the go, but these no load practices will then allow you to know exactly what range of motion, what movement pattern you're hitting in addition to that. So the idea is that these two will build on each other to create the most effective ready go training that you can get. Now, while I certainly think that arm wrestling practice is a time to have fun for a lot of people, plenty of people engage in this sport casually, I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to those of you who are very clearly interested in bringing your utmost to everything, to improving as much as you possibly can. So, while there is time to have fun and to, pull in ways that maybe don't conform to these like three kind of rigid standards that I'm talking to you about today, I think the majority of your training should fall into one of these three, one way or another. Probably the majority of it will be those mid-intensity kind of flow pulls. That's what most people do at practices. The second will probably be the high intensity ready goes that you do, and then the third will be those no load starts. Now, while we're on this subject, I wanted to briefly mention the types of things that I see people doing wrong, and while it's done with good intentions, but I think it is born from a fundamental misplacement of how you categorize table time. We've talked about how it is the most specific form of training, which by definition means you should not be treating it the same way you treat your gym time. And I see plenty of people in the way they approach arm wrestling practices as approaching it like gym time. So plenty of people, they'll pull in bad positions. And I think there is merit to this depending on how you do it. Because pulling in bad positions, that happens. That happens in actual matches. So it's fine to get acquainted with how they feel. I think a versatile arm wrestler should be exposed to a wide variety of different positions. But the issue is if you intentionally pull in bad positions, meaning you choose a bad move on purpose. Say you knew someone was going for a posting top roll, so you intentionally chose to do something like a low hand top roll, which is by all accounts the wrong technical choice to go with, just to give yourself a harder time, to disadvantage yourself in some way. And some people, they'll do this because they're way stronger than their opponent and they need some way to level the playing field. Personally, I think a better way to do this would be to add bands or some other external resistance so that the stronger person can still continue to inhabit good, accurate, technically sound positions while still getting a good training effect for both people. Because the big issue is when, even if you're the stronger person, because believe me, I've been there. I've had this happen to me when I was in high school. I was part of an arm wrestling club in high school, and I eventually outpaced basically everyone on our team because I'll be real, I was the only one taking things seriously. And so I could basically just hold them in whatever position. And what this translated to was by the time my first competition came around, I was I was non-existently fast off the go. I was completely uncomfortable in any kind of regular formal grip. I was used to loading the hell out of my opponents because that's what you can get away with in practice. And it was just not good for me. And I've spent so much time playing catch up ever since then. So these bad positions, pulling in them intentionally, is only going to serve to ingrain bad habits in you when you get onto the table for a competition. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to competitions, you will always default to the thing that you are most comfortable with. And the thing that you are most comfortable with is almost always the thing that you spend the most time doing. So that is why we want to do these things like mid intensity flow pulls to familiarize ourselves with getting the most time of really good positions, and these high intensity ready goes, so that when we hear the words ready go, we can default to something that is the correct technical choice rather than an incorrect one. Another one here that's something plenty of people do, I've been guilty of, I know we all have, um, is not abiding by rules. Okay, I hear the mantra all the time. It's just practice, guys. We don't call elbow fouls. It's just practice, guys. We don't care about seeing knuckles or not. It's just practice, guys. Who cares if his shoulder goes over center? It's fine. And while yeah, that's true in the sense that there is no competition and no refs, no money or prizes on the line, so it's fine to do it in that case. But we're again missing the point of practice. We have to remember practice is not gym time. We are not going to get optimally stronger in terms of any individual muscle group from table time. The whole point of table time is to apply the strength that we have built in the gym in the specific way that mimics what we will see in competition. So, by doing things like taking illegal grips, setting up with shoulders not square, constantly elbow fouling. These things are not going to be allowed in competition. So if you over rely on these, or if you approach these scenarios with either indifference, meaning that you just like foul and then you don't care to correct that behavior, then it's going to show up on the table in competition, whether you like it or not. Now, within this, though I completely agree and completely stand by everything that I have just said here, many of the methods that individual people and teams will employ to skate around these issues that I've talked about today are going to vary. While I think that the three types of pulling that I've mentioned here are very worthwhile for everyone across the board to do because they represent such large swaths of what you will encounter in a competition, I understand that that's not going to be the way that everyone finds success in this, and that's fine. What's most important at the end of the day, I believe, is that we treat table time like what it is. It is skill practice. It is not necessarily time for a max effort. It is time to work on the technical aspects that arm wrestling requires of us. And in order to do that, it requires us to look at ourselves critically, to look at our matches, to look at our own weaknesses on the table, even in practice, and be candid and explain to ourselves, like, this is what I am missing. I will make a conscious and deliberate effort to work on it. That to me is what entails a perfect practice. Thank you guys so much for listening to my rant. I hope you enjoyed, and I honestly would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Tell me if I missed anything, or if you would add anything to it. Take care, guys.